there. So some of my friends are coming over later and I decided I'd make them cookies. And you know, my favorite cookie recipe is obviously the sugar cookie. So I have my ingredients listed out right here so I can easily follow along. And I'm going to start off by measuring my flour. So I need 2 3/4 cups of flour, which I have right here. Oh, there's one of my friends now. Hello? What? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, bye. So it turns out some of my friends can't come, so I don't need to make as many cookies. So I guess I'll have to look at this recipe and maybe change it up and figure out how I can make half as many cookies as I did before with this recipe. Follow along. Alright, so as we saw before, I have my recipe all listed out right here. So it has all the ingredients in the measurements for each ingredient. So if I want to take the recipe and split it in half, I'm going to need to divide each of these ingredients by 2. That way I use half as many ingredients. So right here I have 2 3/4 cups of flour. So what I would do, I would make 2 3/4 cups and I would change it into an improper fraction. So you do that by multiplying 2 by 4 and then adding the 3. So we see that 2 times 4 is 8 plus 3 would give you 11 over 4. So then if I want to divide that by 2, that's the same as multiplying by 1/2. So we see that we have this. So that would equal 11, multiply the numerators, 11 times 1 would give you 11 over 8, which we would also see is 1 3/8 cups of flour. So about 1.5 cups, which makes sense if this is about 3 cups. So if we continue along, 1 times 1/2 would give you 1/2 teaspoon. 1/2 times 1/2 would give you 1/4 teaspoon. 1 cup of butter, that would mean we would have 1/2 cup of butter, which would also be 1 stick. And then 1.5 cups of white sugar, we would make that an improper fraction again. So 1 1/2 would be 3/2 times 1/2 would give you 3/4. 2 eggs would then become 1 egg. And then 1 teaspoon of vanilla we see would become 1/2 teaspoon. So now that we have all of our ingredients halved, we know that our cookie recipe will only make half as many servings. That way I won't have any leftovers because my friends aren't going to come. Alright, so I already have my flour measured out and put into our bowl. And as we see right here, our next ingredient is baking soda, and we need 1/2 teaspoon. Alright, so now my roommate is going to help me by creaming together the butter and sugar. So she's going to add 3/4 cups of sugar into our 1/2 cup of butter, which is actually a stick, and she's going to cream it together. Nice wrist action.
The flick of the wrist.
More like flicking it out of the bowl, am I right?
That's rude.
Alright, so we have our egg and sugar mixture right here, and then we have our dry ingredients right here. So our last thing we need to add to the egg and sugar is our 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And in my apartment, we only have 1/4 teaspoon. And we know kind of like time, 1/4 of an hour is equal to 15 minutes. And 2/4 of an hour is equal to 30 minutes, which is half an hour. So I know that 1/4 of a teaspoon, 2 of these will give me 1/2 teaspoon. So I'll measure out 2 1/4 teaspoons to get 1/2 teaspoon. So there's 1, 2. All right, awesome. So now we're all set. I just have to mix this up, add the ingredients together, and then we'll be ready to bake. Just combining my wet and dry ingredients in the bowl. Almost ready to bake. Alright, so now my cookies are all put out, And my oven is preheated, so I'm gonna go ahead and put them in. And I can't forget to set the timer. I'll see you later when they're done. So now we wait. And now they're done. We just have to wait for them to cool.
Bone apple tea.
Now we see we have our halved cookie recipe so that I don't have too many extra when only a couple of my friends show up. And I'm gonna do a taste test. Bite it in